Now that we've created the base four-leaf clover, I want to show you how to create a reflective tile pattern. And I have tile pattern in quote fingers because really we're creating a reflective pattern using the transform effect. I've saved my progress as overlappingleaves.ai, and I'm going to press Ctrl-0 or Command-0 to zoom out all the way so that I'm fitting the illustration on screen. And I'll press Control-semicolon or Command-semicolon on the Mac in order to bring up my guides. Now you can see that I've used the guides in order to divide my artwork into 8 areas. So I'm dividing the artboard into 2 regions vertically and 4 regions horizontally. And that's because these are the regions into which I want to flip my four-leaf clover. But how do I accomplish that? Because recall, inside the Transform Effect dialog box, one of the big limitations of that dialog box is that your only control over the origin is that little reference point matrix. So you can move the origin point to any of 9 locations within the context of your selected artwork, but not outside of it. So what if you want the origin point to be right there at the intersection of those 2 guidelines? What do? Well, you add another anchor point, and it can just be a floating anchor point all by itself. So let me show you how that works. Make sure, by the way, that you're working on the new clovers layer. That's very important if you're working along with me. You might just want to go ahead and meatball the leaf group so that the point you create appears in front of that. And then go ahead and grab the pen tool or press the P key. And I want you to just go ahead and click at the intersection of those 2 guidelines. And that's it. And you'll just add what's called a path right there, but it's really just a free-floating anchor point. And if you have any concerns that it's not exactly targeted to the proper location, you can grab your wide arrow tool and sort of move it around like so, and then move it until it snaps into alignment with those 2 guidelines. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and rename this guy Point, because after all, it is a floating point. You could even call it floating point if you wanted to. And then I'm going to select all 3 of these objects that are on this new clovers layer by clicking on this little black wedge in the upper right corner of the layer, inside the layers panel, of course. And then I'm going to group them all together by pressing Control-G or Command-G on the Mac. And now we have this group that includes the leaf, it includes the stem, and it also includes this little anchor point. All right, now I can go up to the Effect menu, choose Distort and Transform, and then choose the Transform command, or press Control-E, Command-E if you got it. And now go ahead and select the far left point on the matrix. It doesn't really matter whether it's the top left or the bottom left or the middle left point. Any of them will do. And then select Reflect X, 1 copy, of course, and turn on the preview checkbox just to make sure you got it right. And it should look like this. It should look absolutely beautiful. All right, we can only do Reflect X, though. You can't do Reflect Y as well, or you'll just make a mess of things like so. We have to reflect the leaves to the bottom portion of the illustration in a separate step. So go ahead and turn off that Reflect Y if you turned it on along with me. So just 1 copy, Reflect X, side point in the matrix, click OK, and then we'll go back to the Effect menu, choose Distort and Transform again, choose the Transform command, and this time, after clicking on Apply New Effect, of course, I want you to set the number of copies to 1. I want you to reflect Y this time around. You want the bottom point in the matrix, turn on the preview checkbox to make sure everything looks the way it should, and click OK. Now, what's remarkable about this, check this out, is that you can change your mind about exactly what the reference point is after having already applied the transformation. And here's how it works. Click off of the shapes in order to deselect them. Make sure you have your white arrow tool selected. I'm going to click on that little point that I created, and it is now a traveling origin point. You can move it anywhere you want outside the region, and it has to be outside the area of the four-leaf clover. And for example, let's say I decide to drag it over here to the intersection of the 2 middle guidelines. Then I will go ahead and on the fly move those clover leaves to a totally different location like so. So it gives you this amazing degree of control, quite frankly. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put that guy back because I want it to be there. And now I want to reflect this entire collection of 4 clover leaves. Well, I'm going to have to create a new origin point, of course, right there at the intersection of those 2 middle guidelines. And I'll do that by grabbing my pen tool, and I'll just go ahead and click at that location. Or what I prefer to do, because I'm not always confident that when you click with the pen tool, you're exactly aligning to the guidelines. So the better thing to do in many cases is just to set the anchor point any old place. And notice you should see a new path on top of your group there inside the layers panel. Go ahead and once again rename it point. And then press the A key to get your white arrow tool and drag it so that it snaps into alignment at the intersection of those guides. And this is a little complicated because I have so much artwork going on. I'm going to go ahead and turn off some of these layers right here, some of the pirate layers, so white, black, and his head rag. I'm going to turn all those off, and then I'm going to zoom in a little and drag that anchor point until I am confident that it is intersecting those guidelines properly. All right, good. The next step is the same step we saw before. You go ahead and shift meatball the group so that both the point and the group are selected. Go back up to the object menu, choose the group command, press Control-G, Command-G on the Mac to group them together so that you have yet another group. And then this time around, you only have to apply one transformation by going up to the Effect menu, choosing Distort and Transform, choosing the Transform command, and I'm going to turn on that left-hand point in the matrix. I'll go ahead and raise the copies value to 1, of course, turn on Reflect X, turn on Preview to make sure everything's working, and there it is. And now click OK, and you have created your own pattern of reflecting 4-leaf clovers. Now I'll go ahead and turn on the other layers like so that we can see the elements of the pirate flag. I'll press Control-Shift-A, Command-Shift-A on the Mac in order to deselect everything, and then press Control-Semicolon or Command-Semicolon on the Mac to hide those guidelines. But now we're back to the same old problem. We're back to that original piece of artwork I showed you at the outset of the previous exercise, which means that we have a stylistic mismatch. What do we do about that? Well, we're going to apply the scribble effect, and I'll show you how in the next exercise.